So today we are going to talk about the differences between the Model 12, 16, and 24. So yesterday I spent a good 2 hours doing research on all of this stuff and trying to figure out, okay, well, what are the differences? And honestly, I expect it to be minor, kind of like the DP24, DP32. And honestly, was not minor. Now I'm going to start with prices first of all. So this is as of yesterday, since I did the documentation yesterday. So the DP24 is the cheapest out of all of these. I'm including the DPs for specific things, and the price on this one that I'm doing here. So the DP24 is the cheapest in all of these. It will cost you $699 Canadian to buy. As of the recording of this video, so that's what it is. The DP32 is $849, and so is the Model 12. So the Model 12 is the same price as the DP32 in Canada. So I'm just clarifying. I don't want people to go, well, you said it was this. Like, well, this is what it is in Canada. Next is the Mixcast 4, which is $30 more than a Model 12 or DP32 at $879. I'm not doing anything with the Mixcast. I just kind of included it because it's the newest thing that the Tascam just came out with. Thought it'd be a good idea to include it. And the Model 16 is $1,249, and the Model 24 is $1,499. So that's current prices. I just thought I'd throw that in. So now, I originally wanted to do the entire everything about the three models and talk about them all. The problem is just doing the bare minimum. I'll switch to that screen. So the bare minimum here. So we're looking at all three here. Now this is not an exact. This is a close size comparison. I had to work with three different images that were on the Tascam website, and I had to kind of, I resized them the best I could to make it as they would be. So this is, excuse me, this is how big each one is roughly. It's not 100%. It's very close though. It's very, very, very close to the size differences. First thing, we're going to go through the input section. The funny part is, I got to say this right off, is that I was surprised to find out how much digital stuff the Model 12 is, and we'll talk more about that as I go along here. I expected all of them. I personally expect them all to be roughly the same, because if you look down each channel, you see it's pretty much the same. Now, granted, the Model 12 has everything on the front, or as they call it, the rear of the machine, has all the inputs, all the ports, or jacks, whichever one you call it. But everything else, you look, it's pretty much the same, color-coded the same, everything. With just some, as you expect, minor things to that as you go bigger along the line. So we'll start with the inputs. So the Model 12, I should have put a different picture on here. The Model 12 has 8 XLRs. So it has 8 XLRs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's up to here. And then it has 8 XLR inputs. That's the mono channels. It then has has 8 XLRs right across for mono, so that includes 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 7, 8, and 9, 10 also have a TRR or TRS port for the stereo. So the XLR is 7, the TRS or quarter inch, however you want to call it, is 8. Same with 9 is XLR, and the 10 it would be the quarter inch. Now the Model 12, well, I'll get into that in a second. The Model 16 has 10 XLRs across, and then it has an extra channel, which can be RCA, stereo input, or Bluetooth. So that's what channel 13 and 14 is on the Model 16. That's how they work it. So technically it has 10 channels. Once again, 3 of them are stereo in this case, or it has, it has 10 channels, 2 which are stereo, one the last one is kind of a hybrid of RCA, and you can plug your phone in there, your tablet, or whatever you have, or you can Bluetooth it. That's how that one works. So I don't like to get too complex, but that's what it is on this one. Now the Model 24 has 16 XLRs, or 16 mono channels, 16 XLRs plus the regular inputs, and then it has 4 stereo inputs over here, as you can see, stereo 1/4 inch, so 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and then the last one is RCA's stereo, similar to the Model 16, and a Bluetooth. So that's your 21, 22 is your fancy channel there. All right, so let's move on. So the input types, the Model 12 has similar input types to has a combo input type, really, technically. So it's an XLR plus a TRS that goes in the middle, depending on how you want to use it. And it's the same thing that the DP3224 have, where they have the XLR, and then the center is the TRS, so your 1/4 inch jack. So it has, now this was kind of funny. So it says, well, it's correct. I'm just going through what I wrote here because it says, so 1 to 6. So track 1 to 6 is XLR, and then 7, 8, 9, and 10 are a combination of the XLR TRS combo and then a TRS below, so that it has the stereo, as I stated before. So there are no RCA jacks on the Model 12. It does have a stereo input on it, which surprisingly is different than it has a TRRS. It has a TRRS, which is slightly different from the phone one, or from the Model 16 and 24, whereas it actually will allow you to plug in, like it actually will use the machine as a microphone then. So whatever you're sending through the tracks will go through into the phone. So it's kind of like you can have a talk back. So you have a talk back and a listen on there. So you could use it as like a phone. So you can use your phone as a full phone you can talk back to the person, everything. So I'm going to get to the reasons why I think they did that in a minute, or not in a minute, but near the end here when I talk about all 3 of them at the end here. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. So it has an extra step, and it also has a Bluetooth. Now those 2 get recorded on tracks 9 and 10. Now you have, so in the case of 9 and 10 on the Model 12, you have the option of XLR, TRS in stereo, or phone jack, or Bluetooth. You got all those together in that one spot. So that's kind of nice. You can actually use it. You can use it many different ways, as opposed to the one channel on the Model 16 and 24, where it has just RCA or phone or Bluetooth. So you have, you get that extra little step up. So then on the Model 16 and Model 24 are very similar in this case, where you have your XLRs, then you have underneath the XLRs you have a 1/4 inch TRS input, and then you do have the 2, in the case of the Model 16, the 2 stereo inputs, and then in the case of the Model 24, 4 stereo inputs, depending on how you want to use it. And once again, like I talked about, RCA's stereo port, Bluetooth on both of them on the very last track. Now this is actually very handy for us, because in the church we actually use the RCA's, and I'm going to end up using the stereo because we're having trouble with the computer. So then you have the ability to have one channel for for us in this case at church, as we call it, the media. So video sound would go through there, music would go through there, everything would go through there that has to deal with media. So that's a bonus in that case. So the Model 24 has that as well. Generally on the Model 24, I use that for my phone. If I'm doing a click track, I will use it that way. So let's go on to the next part. I'm going to switch the screen in a second here too. So let's switch the screen now. So the Model 12, Model 16, and 24 all use the Ultra HDDA, High Definition Discrete Architecture preamp. I just wanted to throw that in there because everybody always asks about how are the preamps? What's the difference? So if you go on to the Tascam website, as where I'm here, they talk about it, and it just allows. It's like, I don't think it's the highest one, because they have one above here, which is the HDIA, which they only have one product that uses it, whereas the Ultra HDDA is in here. Now, interestingly enough, on the Model 12, it just says that inputs 1 to 6 have that. So just the mono channels have it. Doesn't say what 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, 10 have on it. So I don't know what it has on it. But in the Model 16 and 24, it doesn't state that they have Ultra HDDA in the manual, but on the website, if I go to the list of products, where I can click right here now and I'll show you, you can see that it has Model 24, Model 16, and Model 12 showing that all have it, and the Mixcast has it as well. Now, the interesting part is, I just wanted to throw this in there, the DP32 and 24 use HDDA. So that's High Definition Discrete Architecture. It's not the Ultra, it's just without the Ultra. So I wanted to throw that in there because I always feel that everybody always asks about these kind of things, and I thought, okay, well then I'll just throw it in there. That's fine with me. So let's go back to the picture. So next on my list of things is the inserts. The inserts on the system are pretty much the same for all of them, whereas they have an insert on track 1 or channel 1, channel 2. And on the Model 20, on the Model 12, they're on the front. They say insert. On the other two, they're right here underneath tracks 1 and tracks 2, and it's the same on both. You can't see it on that one. I can show you here. I put up all 3. So there you can see that's 1 and 2. That's where they have the inserts. Those are the inserts. I don't know why they didn't go all the way across, or at least, even up to, just go up to the stereo ones and just do that much. That to me would have been a much better choice. I do believe, I personally like inserts, and that I thought was kind of weird. Why would you not include the inserts? So I don't know. So the only difference in that case is one's at the front, rear, depending on how you look at this thing. I look at that as the front because it's at the front of me, whereas the bottom here would be between me and there'd be air between me and that. It's not the other way around. So that's my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. So that's that. Next, the gain section. So the gains are the red knobs at the top here. Everybody has a gain. It's no different. On all 3 of them, they all have a low cut. Low cut is great if you're doing vocals, and generally you'd use it more for live, whereas you don't want to fiddle with the EQ. You just hit low cut, and then it takes the low end out, and it just makes it a little clearer to hear, because depending on how close somebody is to a microphone, it can get muffled. That would clear it up a bit. I don't know about you, but when I listen to AM radio and I'm listening to like a talk radio or something, I will actually take the low and just take it right out, because there's no point in having it. And All of them have it, as you can see here, low cut right across. It is on the left side of the channel if you go down as a silo here. And same with this. So they all have that. So they all have a gain, they all have a low cut. Makes sense. You need those. Well, you need the gain. You don't. The low cut is a special. Now, the next one is really weird. So on the Model 20, Model 24 and 16, you have a instrument button on channels 1 and 2. And same on 16. So there's the instrument channel 1 and 2. I don't know why. Now, you go over to Model 12, you have it on every single channel. So these lucky buggers who have a Model 12 have the ability to give a little bit of high gain, or to bring the gain up when it's an instrument. So that's, I looked at them and went, well, why would you put it on 1 and 2? Because generally if I'm recording, for me personally, 1, 2 are generally going to be vocals, and so I'm not really going to use an instrument button on vocals, whereas 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, in this case it's 7, 9, I would be using them for drums, guitar, that kind of stuff. I'm not using it for vocals, and so it'd make more sense to have it over there as opposed to over here, like over on the vocal side. But that's my own personal thing, and that's one thing that annoys me about like this is, same, I would have had it all the way across on all 3, but that's not my call. So next on my list here, so we did gain, we're doing mode. Okay, so now if you look, let's see if I can get a little closer. Okay, so I can get a little closer here. This is the Model 12, and if you look, you have the mode switch. The mode switch reminds me of on the old 4-tracks, where when you wanted to use the microphone side, you would go over to live. In this case, on there it says mic/line on my cassette deck, on my cassette 4-track, and then in this case they have an extra one for PC. The middle one, PC, is to listen to what you've recorded. So it's listening to it's the return from the PC. So if you're like I have been doing it, you can, when you do it in a DAW, you can set it and say, I want to go through the master. The master would be set to a certain channel on the system, generally the last channel, so in this case 910. So you would have 910 on PC, everybody else would be on live, and then you could record yourself. I might be wrong on it. You might have to have PC if you're using the PC. I think it's both, because right here you can see it says USB underneath. But I'll play with that one later. At the moment, that's what I think, because I do know that I've been playing around with it, where I was actually having on my DAW every channel was coming through and then going into and then coming out of the same channel, so I could play with it just for fun, and I could change it around. That's another story. So, and then you have MTR, which most people have been calling meter. I do not know if that is the correct term. I don't know if it means music track. That's what I was thinking maybe they call it. I don't know. Meter's fine with me. Whatever. And then on the cassette 4-track, that used to be called tape. So when you had recorded your stuff and you wanted to hear the playback, you switch it over to tape, and then you could hear what you recorded. And then the system switched over, so all the stuff down here would then become tape. Like it would then become effects for the tape. So I just wanted to show that. Let's see. So yeah, so that is, and it's the same on all of them. So yes, they all have a switch here. There's no difference. It's all the same. So all right, next is one that really threw me off. So the Model 12. Now we're going over to the compressor here. Now this really shocked me. So compression on the Model 12 is digital. All channels are digital, and I thought that was really weird. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. But the Model 16, let's go back, Model 16, all the compressors are analog. And it's like, oh, okay, that's different. And all the compressors on the Model 24 are analog. So if that is something which you want, then yeah. So if you're looking for something like that, then yeah, you have to look at a Model 24 or Model 16. You do not get that option on the Model 12. It is digital. That was really weird. And also, like, some of the wording in the manual for the Model 12, this section is just listed as input. It's not listed as anything else. But on the Model 16 and 24, this is listed as this is all listed as analog input. So they make these, they stress that this is analog, this is not digital. But on the Model 12, they do not stress that. They do not stress that until the end, which I thought was really odd, to say the least. So, but let's move on. So yeah, so then, yes, and also I should say, now in the case of our friend here, Model 12, once again, this one has a compressor on every single channel, whereas on the Model 16, the stereo channels do not have a compressor. That's the 24, so sorry. Model 16 do not have a stereo channel. That's where they lovingly put the name of the system is right there, where you would have had compressors right across. But on here they put the Model 12 at the top. So another thing I found out, I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So if you're looking for where all your channels have pretty much everything, the Model 12 is the way to go. So once again, let's just keep going here. All right, so where am I now? Okay, so EQ. The EQ is made up of 3 bands, as they call it. It's a high, 2 mids. So these work in tandem, and a low. And that is on the Model 12. It's on every single one like that. On the Model 16, however, once again, all the mono channels have the 3-band EQ with the 2 mid section, whereas the stereo channels have the 3 bands, but the mids is just the one knob. Why the difference, I couldn't tell you. And it's the same with the Model 24. So the stereo channels do not offer this much stuff. So that's different as well. Sorry, I'm getting a little dry here. All this talking, I don't usually do this much. So that's the EQ. Once again, you know, the Model 12 is looking like a very interesting machine here. All right, so now let's go on to the auxiliary, the orange knobs here, the auxiliary knobs. So gonna have to go in closer. Yes. So on the Model 12, they're called aux. So auxiliary 1, auxiliary 2 /FX. Now the reason for these /FX is if you happen to be using the effects loop, the internal effects, it would be on auxiliary 2 /FX. If you plug something into the auxiliary 2 port in the back of the machine, it will bypass the effects. So then if you do that, you have no internal effects. You've disabled it. It's disabled once you do that. The other thing I noticed it has is this post button here. And from what I've read, the post button is similar to, I've talked about this on the DP32, DP24, where you have when you're selecting what kind of effects you're using, you have the ability, you have off, pre, post. And pre means that it doesn't go through the EQ, it doesn't go through the faders or anything. It more or less takes the signal and then sends it to the effects loop. So it bypasses, it would bypass all this. Now, I don't know if it's the same on here, but I do know that if you do have the post button down, which affects all these channels right across here, it will ignore the fader. Oh no, it will. Oh, I got it wrong. No, it will use the fader. So wherever you have the faders set down here, it will use them. So like if you have the faders low, that will affect how much will go through the effects loops on these two auxiliary ports. So there's a post. So like I said, it works the same as a post and a pre. And that's how it works on this. Now if we go to the Model 16, you'll see we have 3 buttons here. Actually, okay, so don't quote me on, now that I go, like I said, I don't know, maybe the post is only on auxiliary 1, and that's the only one that it works on. I don't know, because I just noticed that when I look here, they have a post button for each channel, and it seems to only work off of auxiliary or monitor 2. Now that's the other thing that really confused me, is it's auxiliary outputs. On the Model 12, it's called aux, and then the auxiliary buttons are over there, or the auxiliary outputs are over there. And on the Model 16, they are called monitor, so MON, monitor, and then you have FX. But then if you go up here, let's see, it is called, trying to get in there, sorry. It is called aux output, and then it's got monitor 1, 2, and FX, which is kind of confusing. So either way, another difference that's minor, but it's it's major. And so in this case you have auxiliary, you have monitor 1, monitor 2, and then you have your effects. So they're all separate. They're not mashed together. And then and like I said, and I'm going to talk more about it later, you have monitor 1, monitor 2, and your effects loop. So they're all separate. So that's like an added bonus. And in this case, the auxiliary 2s. So if you're using auxiliary 2s, if you want to bypass the fader section of it all, then you would just you would have it out, so it's pre. So it's whatever you have this set to is how loud it'll be going through there. But if you have it at post, then if you go up and down the fader, that'll affect how loud it is, or how much is going out of the monitor 2. So that is that. And on the, I gotta go all the way out, sorry. On the Model 24, once again, you have all 3, but you do not have, as you can see, you do not have a post or pre on any of these. They are just what they are. And it's the same thing. So it says auxiliary here, so you can see it says auxiliary, and up here, come on in, you see aux output, but it's monitor 1, 2, and effects. So those two are the same setup, which is, once again, it makes sense, but it's weird. I understand they're auxiliaries and they're meant to be for monitors, so okay. Just one of those things that's like, well, you should just name them all the same, but that's fine. All right, so then you have a pan knob. That's just the white ones here, which are all the same. So it's just left, right, where you want to put it. Left, right, center. How far over do you want to do it? That's what that is, and it's on all 3. There's no difference on those ones. So yeah, that's all the same. I'm not going to worry about the record button. The record button is on all of them. All of them have a mute button to mute the channel. I'm just going to take a quick look. Yeah, so record, mute. I'm just checking to make sure if there's any other weirdities or oddities that I need to show in this case. So No, so that's all the same. And then you have your faders. Now the one thing you will notice on the faders is, and this is accurate. So on the 12 and 16, they are 60 millimeter faders, and they're 100 millimeters on the 24. So that gives you a little more leeway on the 24 than on the other two. Still a decent size. I just thought that was interesting. All right, so this is now we're gonna get into where. No, I'm not there yet, but this is one thing that's different on the Model 12. You have, let's go down to the bottom here. You have your main. So this is pretty straightforward. So you have your main, your sub, which means that this would go to your main output, that would go to your sub output, and then you have solo. And what solo does, a lot of people don't realize this. Solo is like a mute everybody else button. So if you want to just listen to one track and you don't want to play with any of the, like you don't want to go and pull all the faders down, or you don't want to go mute on every single one, you hit solo. And the way solo works, solo's on the DP3224 as well. The way it works is that whichever ones you select under solo, only those will be played. So if you say, okay, well, I want to listen to how the guitar tracks sound, you can solo out those 2 channels, those 4 channels, how many channels you have them in, and it's nice to have that. So that's in there. Once again, so all of them have main, all of them have sub, because you have main and sub, and then you have the solo channel. That's on the Model 12. So you can single out that channel to listen to it and see how it sounds. And now on the 16 and 24, as you can see, a little blurry, but you have main, sub, and then you have PFL. PFL stands for, I wrote it down. Why can't I see? There it is. Pre-fader listening. So it is. So what you're doing is you are listening to it without wherever you have it here. So I'm not 100% sure. I ran into an issue with it before, but what it will do is it lets you listen to it. It seems to work the same as a solo channel, but if it really throws things off when you're playing with it, if you're in the control room, I generally will make sure that this light up here on the board here, this PFL light, AFL light, is off. If it's on, that means one of those buttons is down. If one of those buttons is down, that means you're not going to hear what you want to hear. So yeah, if you, I think it's only if you're using the control room section, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So, and then the Model 24 also has main, sub, PFL, and if you look over here, where is it? You have the PFL AFL button. That's like light there too. And so I will have to play with that. That'll be another video once I understand how it works. So those are the differences on each on the channel inputs. So now let's go to the output section. So once again, on the 12, everything is on the rear. Let me see if I can pull up a picture here quickly. Just go. Let's see how this. There we go. All right, so that's the Model 12's rear, front, whichever one you call it. The USB is different on this one. It looks like it's a USB-C. That's a little wider than that's pretty much the newer USB cables. I'm not really sure. It has a external adapter for power, and also on the back, so you have your mains, your left and rights, XLR, output, balanced. everything is balanced. That's a nice feature to have. You have your sub outputs, which are TRS, so tip ring sleeve, and you have the left and right, and then you have auxiliary 2 and auxiliary 1. So that's all really cool. Now, something which you don't have on the other two is a click output. So you can output the click track. That is kind of interesting. I did not expect to see that. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, well, that's kind of neat. And you also have a double pedal foot switch. So instead of having the standard, it's not as fancy. I don't know if it's as fancy as I'll have to check. It could be as fancy as the one for the DP32, which is a 3-pedal foot switch. I'm gonna have to take a look at that later. But it's not like, this is what I have to use. This is what I'm using on my Model 24. I have a 1-pedal foot switch, which is just the one. As you can see, it's just the tip ring or tip sleeve, blah blah blah, and that's all it has on it. So that is kind of neat too. Right there is that you have a better foot switch than you do on a Model 24 and 16. Also, you have MIDI, so you have in and out MIDI, the old style. I know that the Model 1624s offer a MIDI USB. I have not played with it yet. And as you can see here, so like I was saying, you have the 2 inserts, and then you have your combo XLR, TRS, and then these are connected in stereo. And there's your Music Talk little 1/8-inch plug that the old phones used to have. I don't think the new phones have it. I know my new Samsung does not have any way to plug in a head, like anything like that anymore. So that is the front of front or back, whichever one you call it, of the Tascam Model 12. So yeah, you have a lot of cool stuff there, which you do not have on the other ones. So on the Model 16, this is it's pretty much the same on the 24. You have your output area. You have your foot switch, which would be this style of foot switch. You have your main outputs, which are left and right, and they're XLR balanced. You have your sub output, which is also balanced. Your monitor 1, 2, and effects, which are all balanced. And then your control room. The control room would be where you would plug in, like where you would plug in your studio speakers and all that stuff, because the main outputs would be showing everything, where your control room stuff is just what you want to hear. And so they've separated the two, which is a great idea, by the way. That's just an absolutely great idea. And then you have your headphone jack as well, and you also have phantom power. So that's where we are. That's what that has. And now on the Model 24, it's moved around a bit, but it's the same thing. You have your sub outputs, your main outputs, your monitor, your FX, your foot switch, and same thing, foot switch, just one, not anything fancy. Your control room and your headphones, but they made it black for some reason. I don't know why they made it black. So it's not black on this one, it's black on this one. Now it could just be the picture I have of this one, I don't know. But I thought that was kind of interesting when I saw that. And yes, I'll have phantom power, so I'm not even going to worry about phantom power. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the EQ. This is kind of neat too. So on the Model 12, your EQ is right by your headphones jacks. Here's your headphones jacks on this. Now, once again, on the Model 12, you have 2 headphone jacks. That's kind of nice. And then you have your EQ, which is, you have your Same thing. It's 3-band EQ, high, mid 2 knobs in tandem, and a low. That's your EQ on your Model 12. On the Model 16, I think it's a little different. Yes, you have a 4-band EQ where you have high, mid, which I'm assuming would probably be a high mid, and then you have another mid for lower mid. Not really sure which they work, and then a low. So these two are in tandem of each other. Still same concept as the other one, but you have an extra mid section to play with, which is kind of interesting. Now on the Model 24, you are given a graphic equalizer to play with. So this is now a 7-band graphic equalizer. So you're one step above again, and I think it's kind of neat. I think it's kind of neat that this one has the graphic equalizer. Okay, so yes, we are working through this, and I don't know if there's going to be another video. If I'm going to do more research on this to see if there's because I did not get into the nitty gritty of the effects loops and that, and the internals. I'm thinking about doing a video on those because there are differences. I know the Model 12 has certain things that the other two don't, and so. But we'll talk about that later. So now we're going to talk about just the bottom half here, the outputs. So in the case of our friend, the Model 12, it has, we'll start up here. So you have a tap tempo. That's just, if you're to set your click track, you have a tap tempo, but you also have, this is also a tap for your reverb. So that's kind of neat. So you can set, if you're doing slapback, you can set it right there. The other two don't have that. One thing that's different about the Bluetooth on the Model 12 is you can assign it to tracks 9 and 10, or you can just run it through the main. So in other words, you're not even listening to it. You're using it more as just as a reference there. So you run it through main, and then it just goes off into the abyss, or it gets tracked onto the main channel tracks. So, all right. So now we go over to, let's see. So I talked about the effects fader. So you got your effects fader right here. That is your effects loop. This sends it to auxiliary 1, your effects, if you want to do that. I'll just talk about that on the other ones too. So you can then the effects buttons here. So you can say send it to auxiliary 1, include it in main, include it in sub, include it in AFL, which is part of that PFL thing. I think it means after. What does the other one mean? PFL. We're going to find it there. One was pre-fader. Yeah, this was after fader levels. So, yeah, so you have the ability to decide to send it if you want that way. Then you have the sub button here, the sub mix, the sub fader, so that runs the sub channel. Yeah, it makes sense. You got mutes on all three, and the sub channel you can also blend into the main if you want. So you can kind of use it as a separate gate. So you can have certain stuff on the sub that are going just to the sub channel, and you can say, okay, I'll bring up this high to include it into the main, and makes it nice to do. And then you have your main. The post record button. Did I write down what that does? I did not write what the post record button does. So I think what that means is that it will record. If you have that down, it will record on like when you're playing it. I'm not sure. I'm not going to get into that one. I forgot to do it. Sorry. Like I said, there was so much here, and this part I just kind of glazed over. You have your headphone levels, you have your PFL AFL level, and then you have your you have your auxiliary 1 and 2 levels there as well, and you can send it to auxiliary 1 AFL and auxiliary 2 AFL, and you can mute it. So that's what that does. All right, so now we're going over to this one. Okay, so now we're on the 16. The 16 has an effects fader, and once again, same thing. You can blend it to the monitor, to the main, to the sub, to the AFL. And then you have CR, so that's your control room fader. That's what they named it on the Model 16. You then have a sub fader and a main fader. The sub, once again, you can blend it into the main, and you have the mute button for all three. Did I write with post-record switch on there to record the main fader to the SD card? So that's how you would record your final version. You use the post-record button. And that's probably what it does on the Model 12 as well. So there, I did write it down. I just wrote it down on the other model. So that is there, and then same thing here. So you can send it to AFL, monitor 1, monitor 2, and then you can mute it. You can set the main levels here, and you have your PFL and your phones here too. So that's all in the system like that. So, and then let's see, and then this is your effects system here. So that's the select button for that, and your monitor, and you can send it into the auxiliaries there. So how much you want to go into your monitor section. And let's go to my friend, the Model 24. So on the Model 24, you have, as you can see, you don't have an effects fader. The effects fader is right there. So that's how much you're sending it. And let's see, it says 2 main, left, right. And then same with auxiliary 1, auxiliary 2. Those are to the monitors. Once again, you can mute. I think the mute on this is for the digital effects. So you can turn the effects off, and then you have your select button to select which one you want to use. And then here you have your PFL AFL master, which I'm like I said, I don't play with it. Control room. So you don't have a control room fader, you have a control room gauge dial. On mine, I have it all the way up because I have it going through my big knob, which I then set the volume. And phones for your headphones. So, and the last part on this is we have a sub channel, and you can once again transfer it to main. You got your mutes for all of them. Now on here, they actually give you a fader for the monitor 1 and monitor 2. So it's a little more, it's a little more you're in control. It's like it's set there so that you can play with it as you're doing it. It's more of a live feel, and then you have your main. And so that covers everything on all three of them. Now that's a lot of stuff. So, final thoughts on this. Why is the Model 12 so much different than the Model 16 and 24? My guess is that the Model 12 was originally going to be more of what the Mixcaster became, which is it is more for doing a blog, doing a vlog, whatever you call it. What is it? A blog? A podcast. That's the word I'm looking for. Podcast. So it's more for a podcast setting where you're going to interview people, where you're going to might have small bands play. It's for somebody who has a very small studio. And honestly, I'm now considering just it's a little pricey, but I'm considering looking into it deeper as something, because it's smaller, I can just pick it up and then take it somewhere if I'm going somewhere and I have everything I need to record right there. I think it's great for that. I think it would be great for all that kind of stuff. So I think that's what it's for. I think that's what the original concept was going to be for. The Model 12 was going to be more for a podcast kind of situation, whereas your Model 16 and Model 24 are more designed for what's the word I'm looking for? More for an actual performance, like where you need the ability to turn people on and off, like mute microphones real quick, or you need the extra inputs to because you're gonna have more music, more instruments and more microphones in that. I think that's what they're for. I think they're more for a performance use where you are going to have the sound. You're not only are you recording the sound, but it's getting presented to a crowd of people at the same time. So you have both working for you at the same time. And I think that's what it was designed for. And I think that's what the Model 24 is definitely designed for. The Model 24 is definitely designed as a mixer for doing shows. It is a performance mixer. It is designed for that. It is designed to record it, and it is designed to just put the music out there. Just let just let you do it all in at once. And honestly, that is why I ended up buying one, because it was just absolutely amazing. So, holy crap, is this an hour long? This is a very long video, and I am sorry it is so long. There's way more than I expected, as I said. If you watched the whole thing, thank you. Let me know you watched the whole thing. I'd love to find that out. So I will talk to you all later. Bye.